Hey, world history, how are you doing? This is Mrs. Rose. Welcome to your first flipped model class where we will have lecture that you can watch at home. Of course, with an EdPuzzle, just to kind of make sure you're actually watching the lecture and you're getting something out of it. You're applying the learning. But as you can see, we are going to be learning about beer today. And if anyone's within earshot and they're thinking, wow, what's your teacher doing? Are we promoting underage drinking? Are we doing something crazy and trendy? No, actually, we are looking at the world through 6 glasses. So when you think about world history, as I get this into present mode, as you think about world history, you can think about the fact that some of the oldest beverages in the world have come from settling down, from moving from hunter-gatherer society to actually creating a civilization. And those beverages are ancient, and they're now part of our culture, where we sit down and we have community around such beverages. And so this book that is a really fascinating look at history is something that we're going to be tackling with the first chapter this week. Actually, you guys are going to be doing most of the teaching, but I'll be setting you guys up. So it's the world in 6 glasses, and we look at beer, we look at wine, coffee, tea, those ancient, I'm leaving some out because I don't have time, but those ancient beverages that we still use today. And we wouldn't have them if we didn't move from one type of community, which is the hunter-gatherer societies, to agricultural ones. So let's kind of dig in and figure out how we can look through the world through these type of glasses, right? So this presentation is called Beer, the First Frontier, otherwise known as the Neolithic Revolution. So let's get started. Important things to know for you is vocabulary to help set a foundation for the knowledge that you're going to be kind of gleaning from this class and understanding as we go through. I want you to understand something called big geography. Big geography is kind of when we are talking about looking at like the big picture as well, where we might be looking at something that seems really small and insignificant at first, but really it's going to have a global change, a global current, a trend. It's going to set things in motion. And that's really what this class is about. So when you're looking here at what I have written, world history is not just a traditional history class with the added burden of a huge subject, which I know you're probably feeling. This is a big subject, and we're in 2020, and we're in a pandemic and learning in a new way. But I want you to know that while, we can break things down into small pieces, we can still look at the whole picture. So it's a relatively new method of doing history. So instead of just tossing all these massive amounts of information at you, we kind of look in the beginning of this course at the whole picture. And that's what's called big geography. So dates, individuals, belief systems, and political forms are only considered as they explain changes and continuities in these themes. So AP World, now you're probably going to laugh at me and be like, oh my gosh, Ms. Rose, I've already seen the course. I've been flipping through my yellow textbook, Worlds Together, Worlds Apart. And there's a lot of stuff in there. Believe it or not, though, how we break down those 9 units is big geography, is the big picture. And then within those, we're going to look at those continuity, change over times, contextualization, all those things. And so it's like we do a lot of little things to help build you up into this big geography. So just kind of hang on and go along for the ride. The first trend that I'm going to kind of break down this big picture, this big geography for you, is the idea of migrations of Paleolithic people throughout the world. So in the word Paleolithic, it means old Stone Age, and it refers to a way of life in which stones were the most prominent tools and people led nomadic lives of hunting and gathering for food. So it's not just like those old comics where, You have cavemen and they're dragging their women around by their hair. That's not anything that's going on in this time period. But literally it's about the tools that they're using. And, think about the fact that they're going to use these tools in order to maybe carve from bone, arrowheads, spear tips, those things that will help hunting. They will use stone tools in order to help create things that are for gathering, because early communities were on the move. They had to, one, they went out of curiosity. What's over the next hill? What's out there? So that's one. But then two, it's also to feed yourself, your family groups as you're kind of creating society. And so hunting and gathering with stone tools to make what they would use to hunt and gather is very important. The Paleolithic history Paleolithic term is not really just for a strict time in history, because what I want you to really, kind of hone in on the fact is that we still have nomadic people today. So even when we say hunting and gathering was in a Paleolithic time period, I don't want you to just assume that it happened, people were nomadic, and then they settled down and had beer, and they don't, and coffee and tea, and they don't roam anymore. And the thing is, today in many parts of the world, we have nomadic people. So just kind of keep that in your mind that, I'm not eliminating once I hit the Neolithic Revolution that we still have nomadic people. And we're going to talk about these pastoralists and why they choose that type of lifestyle today and some of the ramifications of that. So it should be with the Neolithic Revolution, this Paleolithic, as we're moving through, it should be contrasted with agricultural and industrial economic systems and the social patterns emanating from them. All right, let's see if I get this to move on. Why is it stuck? Hold on, guys. There we go. So you're still saying, Miss Rose, you're getting boring. Tell us about the beer, right? Well, let's get there. So with archaeologists, as people that study history and cultures and evidence, basically they go and get archaeological evidence of people. They have discovered that these Paleolithic people, these hunter-gatherers, traveled around small foraging bands that were basically egalitarian. Egalitarian is equal groups. So the idea from the evidence they have is that women and males, so males and females, were equal. That's a really big thing that I want you to kind of hold on to, because when we can kind of compare hunter-gathering to agricultural societies, I want to see if you happen to notice how that can change. So again, hunter-gatherer society is very egalitarian. So equal, genders were equal. And because they had no consistently reliable source of food, they were almost always on the move. And then, of course, they're also curious. They want to see what's out there. Okay, trying to make it. There we go. Then we have the advent of something major. One of the first things that hunter-gatherers can really control, and that is fire. So fire is going to be a game changer. And we're going to see a little video in a second. Please note that if it doesn't seem to play well here on Screencastify, in the email where I send this homework link to EdPuzzle, please note that I will also send the link to the video. So that way you can see the video as well. But the development of the control of fire is going to change everything, because you will now use it to cook your food. You'll use fire to protect yourself. You could also use fire. I mean, think about the fact if you've ever gone to summer camp in any way, you've gone camping or you've gone to Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, any sort of youth group camping, what happens around the fire? A lot of talking, a lot of laughing, a lot of maybe sharing of stories, personal stories, how you lived your life, what's your background. When people start sharing stories and sharing life, they're starting to not only construct history, but they're going to start inventing language and inventing, the need for schooling others, because they're going to start coming up with traditions, or maybe how to teach the next generation how to hunt. So we're going to see a lot of this. With fire, it also helps because a lot of the time period where we are pulling out evidence is from one of the ice ages. So we know that the world starts cooling down. And also the fact that they are migrating to see what's on the other side of that hill, and as well as catch up with their food sources, the meat on four legs as it runs, from as we move through mammals that were much bigger back then, and the prehistoric elephants, the mammoth, all these food sources they would have to chase. And of course, as you can look at this map, you can see how a lot of either the Middle East or North Africa really seems to be, in archaeologists' view, kind of like the Eden, the starting point from which history kind of starts in Africa and moves out in with the form of migrations and hunter-gatherer societies. So we can see in this migration of anatomically modern humans, which means they're walking on two legs, because again, our textbook is written for college. So even though we are in a school and we are in a Catholic school and we believe in the gospel and of course the Old and New Testament and the creation in Genesis, we also know that through these textbooks and looking at where you're going for college, that you're going to be learning about evolutionary theory. So in looking at this map, they're talking about the evolution of man to two legs, anatomically modern. So this is that type of map right here. So let's see exactly if this video works in Screencastify, or if I just pause it and let you watch this. But we're going to see a little bit of a video next. Hold on. There we go. Let's see if it works.
The greatest gift that Mother Nature gave to mankind is rapid oxidation or fire. Fire is a crucial human advantage.
Any kind of society began with the cooking of meat over flame.
Our ancestors from hundreds of thousands of years ago would regularly encounter natural sources of fire, and they probably experimented with them. We're a restless, curious, adventurous species, and there are probably several tens of thousands of years worth of burnt fingertips before humans figured out how to make fire do something useful. But when they did, it extended the daytime so they could see each other at night. It kept away predators. Fire does the following. It destroys harmful bacteria. It neutralizes toxins. It makes food taste better. And more importantly, it breaks down carbohydrates. So it increases the amount of carbohydrates that are going into the body. And these carbohydrates will have a major effect on the brain. It is the brain size that begins to increase from 1 million years ago, when we have the first evidence of fire in humans, to 100,000 years ago when modern humans came on the scene.
When we started to cook around fires, that meant groups had to gather together. They would pool their resources. And having to work together to gather that food and cook it was really the beginning of human society.
Home and hearth are places of comfort, where we can seek food, mutual support from other people like ourselves.
The heat, the flame, the beginning of all conversation. Still, flame attracts people to talk to one another.
When you sit around a campfire as a group, you are creating basically the first school ever. Because storytelling is one of the best ways for groups to communicate. storytelling was not just a comfort. Storytelling was the key to their survival.
If we're looking at revolutions and human origins, control of fire must rank among the most important of them.
All right. So now we have an idea of why having fire is so important. That's the first thing that hunter-gatherer societies could actually. Hold on one second. I'm trying to move this in a better way. There we go. All right. To create, something that they can manipulate, something that they could control, that they could cook with. It changes, communication. People are going to sit around. There's a little bit more leisure time because now you're not limited by the day. That when the sun goes down, you have to go to sleep because nothing would be bright enough outside of the moon to allow you to extend your day. And now you can create community because you're sitting around, and you can even teach and have schools or talk about how to hunt better. So we finally manipulate fire. What else can we manipulate? Which brings us to this next point that says, bring on the beer, right? So what ends up happening? Well, not that. Here we go. Basically, Paleolithic people of our hunter-gatherer society make one of the most important discoveries of all time. And that is that you take a little seed and you put it in the ground and you take care of it. It's not like when they were hunter-gathering and grabbing fruit and seeds would fall. And, when they would come back around because they'd have to, go hunt other, resources and come back around because you have to follow hunting seasons. Well, not hunting seasons, but like birthing seasons and whatnot with animals. They would come back and they'd probably be like, wow, this plant was here. I remember we sat here and ate, and now, a lot of seeds, and now there's these plants growing here. So basically, over millions of years in evolutionary theory, Paleolithic humans basically figured out that every plant has the ability to reproduce itself. So when the function of seeds were finally understood, humans could become farmers. And remember, going back to when I said hunter-gatherer societies existed, I had said they were very egalitarian societies. Now we're going to become farmers, and you're thinking, okay, this is great because now we don't have to run around the world anymore. We can settle down. We can make cities. We could have different type of specialized jobs, all these different things, right? So you're probably thinking, wow, learning how to manipulate a seed in the ground changes everything for the better. Can we say that? It'll be interesting to kind of see what you guys come up with as you study this week. So moving on. I'm really sorry. There we go. This sounds relatively simple, figuring out the seed and growing it and becoming farmers. But it is not until the Industrial Revolution, so think about how late that is, like the 1750s, that there would be something as revolutionary a change in the social and economic organization of human beings. So we do the agricultural revolution, and it's going to be thousands of years before we have another revolutionary process that can be so dramatic to humans. So the transition from hunters and gatherers to farmers is what is called the Neolithic Revolution. And it is what makes civilization possible. Now, again, we can still have that debate on pastoralists, which are our nomadic people today. Do they have a civilization? We look at the key traits of a civilization over the next week, and we'll kind of have those discussions. But literally, though, we do have a big shift, whether you want to call it a process or whether you want to call it a revolution, to becoming from hunter-gatherers to farmers. So in your mind, what is a revolution? A revolution, if you look up the definition, tends to be a somewhat dramatic shift in a lifestyle. If you want to look at the word, what is a process, that definition tends to be along the lines of a systematic change that happens over time, maybe from an assembly line or something else, a process. So basically revolutions, I think for a lot of people, they think, oh, that's revolutionary. That happens overnight. It's so fast. But revolutions can take thousands of years. And a process can take a very long amount of, time. It just depends on the process. So just kind of keep that in mind, that when we say revolution, we're not saying anything that's happening super fast. Okay, now we're going to get to the beer part. All right, so this is from last year, so I said flippity, time to work. The groups that you're going to be working in this week are going to be chosen a whole different way. So my title of my old slide doesn't really work. But what I'm going to do now is introduce what your particular class is going to be doing. And we're going to wait and do that on Zoom Tuesday so that I can be a little bit more specific, because every group is doing something a little bit different. So with that, I'm kind of at the point where I'm ready to kind of wait for the live class. So hopefully you've gotten through all your EdPuzzle questions. You're good to go. And you have found maybe a little bit of this interesting when you think in terms of getting into why are we talking about beer. All right. We're going to figure out how settling down and becoming agricultural is going to create this drink, which has a big effect on how we build society. But instead of me teaching that to you, you're going to be teaching me in a very unique way. So we'll talk soon. Thanks, guys.